Today I'm going to install this Turner Motorsport E36 M3 skid plate on my M3, because when I got the M3, the center section baffle wasn't there under the car. I like this solution because it bolts up to the factory front lip and has supports. The supports mount in some factory locations. This is how I got it. This guard was here. The brake ducts are there. But then where this plastic lip is supposed to go to the other side, there was just nothing. So what we can do here, these two factory holes, we'll just drill them out a little bit and then put riv nuts in there. So the bracket will be like this and support the skid plate. Skid plate will come to about here. And when we do this, we'll take off this as part of the factory air baffle that goes here. And the front lip and this part of the bumper will remain. We're just going to drill holes in here for large expanding riv nuts that the skid plate will mount to. Depending on the state of your underbelly, there's a plastic insert and a metal insert that goes in these holes to support the factory stuff. So you're going to want to get them out of there. Either pry the plastic or drill the metal. And then I'm going to put this in position and I'm going to mark it and I'm going to drill it out so the riv nut can go in there. When I picked this thing up, these holes were here. Somebody was bottoming out the front end a bunch. I've removed the corner pieces for the underside of the original plastic bumper. Need to make this hole a little bit bigger to put the riv nut in. So I just have the riv nuts thrown on here. I want to make sure everything lines up. So now let's get these holes cleaned up. Just throw a little paint on there, and then we'll put the riv nuts in. So we're putting the riv nut in here to hold the M6 screws. So we got the riv nut in there. So now I'm going to put this bracket like this, and it's angled. So now this is going to be parallel to the existing bumper lip. Before I put any holes in the plastic, I'm doing a test fit. It's pretty good where it wants to lay naturally. I'm going to get it in the best position I can. This screw clip location where the skid plate wants to mount to keep this flap in place was broken off some time ago, and it looks like somebody zip tied it. So I think I'm going to take some of the plastic that's still solid off this guard, because this underside guard is not going back on, and cut this into a reinforcement for that lip. I cut down that plastic, drilled a couple holes for zip ties, and made a new hole for the screw clip so this can be joined to the skid plate. So we have the brackets, and then we have the reinforced plastic mount point for the original location where that plastic piece mounted that this skid plate has a hole for. This lines up pretty good with the seam here. Same thing on this side. But the other hole in this skid plate is right where the plastic joint between the center piece and the side pieces was. So I'm going to reinforce it with the same plastic bridge that I did before, and hopefully pull this side out a little bit and make sure that's where I think it should be before I do rivnuts in the plastic of the bumper and center this. That way every hole I make, I'm pulling this into the ideal position. Hopefully I can get this, the way this lays right now, it's pretty good, pretty centered. This gap is fairly consistent, and I want to get it as good as I can. So now with this stitched up, I'm going to put the skid plate on again and mount these again, and then touch off with the drill through the plate to identify where the clip should be on this, because this is pretty fixed. There's no, I don't want to put this under too much stress, so I want to make sure I get this hole right. So we got the clips in here, and I've slid the plate around on the bracket on both sides. I like the way this looks. So now I have the plate. The plate is centered because this is the center of the bumper, and it's pretty close to the lip, but it doesn't actually touch anywhere, and that's what I want, because it's so. To make sure that I get this mounted in the best way I can, and without, so that it's not pulling on the plastic, I'm gonna push the center up, because it doesn't fight me that much. I'm gonna push the center up, and I'm gonna drill, and then I'm gonna put the expanding anchor in these 3 holes so that I can mount it, which I'll have to take the plate off to do. But then I'll put it back, and these will be mounted, and they'll be pulled up in there. And then I'm going to continue and drill the next, so that it's as flush as it can be, and there isn't any slack or any tightness between the anchors. When I installed the rivnuts for the bracket, I used these M6 rivnuts that came with the kit. And I got good engagement, got thread sticking out a little bit, and then I was able to put it into the steel mount point for the underside cover. So those brackets are on there. And I have this 2-armed guy as well. And they both have an M6 mandrel in them. And you can see the 1-armed, the mandrel is actually a little bit longer. But these 4-winged rivnuts barely get thread engagement, and there isn't even any material between it. So I was trying to figure out how to install these reliably, because I want some thread sticking out there so I got full engagement. I found this style, and I tried it, but I didn't feel like I had the amount of control that I wanted, because I'm installing into the plastic bumper, and it was spinning on the plastic. So this didn't really work for installing. But then I found this. This is like a aircraft tech tool. There's a ramp, so you crank this down, and then it's stationary. So there's nothing here spinning. And then just wind it this way, and it'll collapse it. So I'm going to try and install these 4-winged rivnuts with this guy. Do it again. Two full terms seems to have about done it. I got all the anchors in, and I've repaired this lip so that the back side of the plate can mount to here. And I zip tied the fender well to the front bumper lip, and I zip tied it to the supports. So it has plenty of play, but this will make sure that the brake ducts don't fall out if it hit water or hit a bump. So let's see how this fits. Here we are with all the fasteners installed.